Music is sometimes referred to as the universal language, and I think with good reason. Music has an uncanny ability to communicate across cultural and ethnic and religious lines. A haunting melody is the same for a Japanese person, as well as for an English person. A sad piece is sad across the same divisions of humanity as well. An Indian listening to Felix Mendelssohn is brought about to the same thing as is a German, of course with personal variations. Very few things have this type of power, practically all are artistic endeavors. There is something about beautiful and aesthetically pleasing things that lends to it a surreal ability to speak and to move. This video is going to be an exploration of the ontological significance of music and more broadly of beauty itself, with some logical speculation on my part. Think with me about this. If an Italian and a Norwegian meet up in England and neither spoke the other's language, and there was no translators, how would they communicate? The most obvious answer is that they would use a language known to both, a universal language. Perhaps they both speak English or Spanish, or sign language, or they speak to each other in a simple type of gestural motioning. They would essentially be reaching beyond their own familiarity and speak to each other with something more essential to humanity than their own well-developed cultural languages. This is at base what music does. It transcends other languages and addresses something more fundamental to humanity. Another example would be the Chinese written language, which I find to be endlessly fascinating. The Chinese verbally speak many different languages, Cantonese, Mandarin, various other tribal languages, but they all write the same language. The kanji they use, being pictorial and not alphabetic, can be accurately expressed regardless of the verbal languages. In other words, in order to communicate, the Chinese appeal to something more base than their verbal languages, and something that's universal for the Chinese, something understood by all. I would submit that this is what music is. It is the universal base language of the soul. One needn't utilize his rationality to understand, because it's a language that's already known to the soul. So what's being communicated then? If the soul can hear and interpret the music, what's the music saying? At this point, I'd like to expand the argument to include beauty itself, not just music. Paintings, sculpture, novels, poems, all of these things have the communicative powers that music has, which indicates that beauty is the universal among universals. I would suggest that longing is what's being communicated, or what C.S. Lewis called joy. A longing to have what the thing seen as beautiful suggests or implies. The wonderful thing about music is that it moves us and transports us to a type of oasis from the world. But the downside is, of course, that being moved eventually ends. No one's fully moved by the thing. It's momentary, and then you're back to wherever it was you started from. The longing to be to where the music alluded to is what's ultimately being communicated by the beauty that's reflected in those objects. The music is the smell of the steak wafting off the grill. Of course, the smell alone cannot offer the steak itself. A cautionary note here. Though it's tempting, we must try to avoid seeing the thing itself as the source of the beauty. The thing itself is only a reflection of the thing we long for. As C.S. Lewis said, "For they, the sensory objects, are not the thing itself. They are only the scent of a flower we have not yet found, the echo of a tune we have not yet heard, or news from a country we have never yet visited." Doesn't that just make sense? Given our inability to find enduring fulfillment in the material things that we mistake as beautiful, to suggest that there is no ultimate fulfillment in those things because it's not they that are actually beautiful. It's what they reflect that's beautiful. They are moons which can only reflect the abundant light of the sun. How many people have ever honestly had their fill of beauty? We long for the beautiful ad infinitum. And we see as beautiful, and the things that we see as beautiful have never really fully delivered what they promise, because it's not theirs to give. I'm going to close with a question here, and this is really the crux of the argument, and if you're listening to this and want to respond, what I want you mainly to respond to. If we can never be fully satisfied by the things of this world, doesn't that imply that we were made for a different world?